Let's face it, cyber attackers have the advantage. ExtraHop is on a mission to help you take it back. Regain the upper hand with security that can't be undermined, outsmarted, or compromised. When you don't have to choose between protecting your business and moving it forward, that's security uncompromised. See how it works in the full product demo, free online at securityweekly.com/extrahop. SOC analysts are often overworked and underappreciated. In fact, 78% say that working in the SOC is very painful. Yikes. On October 20th, Devo is establishing SOC Analyst Appreciation Day to pay some long overdue kudos to you and encourage organizations to improve SOC analyst job satisfaction and mental well-being. Join Devo as they celebrate SOC analysts around the world and provide opportunities for personal and professional development, all while you unwind with programming specifically designed to help you de-stress. You can also win a Nintendo Switch if you participate in Devo's Twitter hashtag contest. All you have to do is follow at Devo_Inc. on Twitter and tweet using hashtag SOC Analyst Day. Visit securityweekly.com/Devo to sign up and learn more. Did you know that 81% of data breaches are caused by weak password security? Keeper Security's easy-to-use password manager platform keeps your passwords safe, easy to share, and out of reach of cyber criminals. Keeper is the leading cybersecurity platform for preventing password-related data breaches and cyber threats. Check out Keeper and get a free 3-year Keeper Password Manager solution when you take a demo of Keeper for Business. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Keeper Security.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. InfoSec World 2021 is proud to announce its keynote lineup for this year's event. Hear from Robert Urjevec, plus heads of security at the NFL, TikTok, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Stanford University, and more. Plus, Security Weekly listeners save 20% on Digital Pass registration. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2021 to register now. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Now for the news. You can go to securityweekly.com/ESW 246 to see the notes that we're looking at here that we put together for today's news. And as usual, I start out with, it's almost every week there's some kind of crazy funding round. You see Wiz there, Paul?
You define crazy. Is that like a
I don't know.
Technical measurement?
I don't know anymore. So back when I was at 451, that $250 million round that Tenable raised was crazy, like just unbelievable.
Was that the Excel? That was the Excel round, first Excel round. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one right before they started prepping for IPO. Mm-hmm. And so this one is only a $250 million Series C, which is less than we saw Wiz's competition, Orca. I think that the C extension was $550 million alone, on top of another $205 million. So over $700 million raised in their Series C. But Orca's valuation was $1.8 billion, excuse me, and Wiz's valuation is $6 billion.
Yeah, that's what makes it. I mean, in the Tenable example, from what I remember, we had not, when I was there, right, we had not taken on a huge amount of funding. So to take a larger Series C made sense at the time. I'm not sure how it matched up with I don't remember the valuation at the time. But I think where it gets crazy is when you're taking on so much funding, right, that it's way exceeding like your revenue or your value or your valuation is just like ridiculous. Like a $6 billion valuation that's high.
Yeah, and for context, that's almost what Intel, not factoring in inflation, almost what Intel paid for McAfee
right.
over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost triple what Cisco paid for Duo.
Right. Correct.
Excuse me, I made the poor judgment of opening a soda. So I'm going to be burping into my arm occasionally. So only time will tell, if either Wiz or Orca see any kind of exit that validates these validations. Mm-hmm. It's just It's crazy. The way I was putting is, it's almost like Wiz saw Orca's $700 million raise and said, "Hold my 50-year scotch."
Mm-hmm. Craziness.
Gretel.ai, another funding raise here. So this is in 2 weeks, we've seen 3 Series B raised for privacy engineering companies. And this is the third one and largest one. Last week we saw, let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. Nope, I can't. But we saw a $30 million round raised and a $35 million round raise. I'm blanking on the names, but they all do it a little bit differently. Like one of them last week looks at your data and generates fake data for you. And then the other one, I think, actually scrubs your data. And it's all about making sure that you're not, developers don't have the entire company database, customer database sitting on their laptop, which we've seen leaked and lost in all kinds of breaches over the years. So the idea is to give you a safe data set to play around with in dev and QA environments.
I think we'd be remiss not to mention that Gretel.ai's co-founder and CEO is Ali Gulshan, who had a successful company and exit with StackRox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
That plays in that I think oftentimes plays into the funding rounds too.
They were in the cloud container space, right? StackRox.
Yeah, acquired by Red Hat.
Right. Next up, I don't know much about Kentic, but this is already their Series C. It's a smallish Series C, $40 million Series C, and they're a network observability startup. What's interesting about that, they don't seem like they're pure play security. They're more of like a network tool that has potentially security use cases. They just look for statistical anomalies in NetFlow, in network traffic. So like if it's normal for 1,000 users to be hitting a server on a Monday afternoon, and all of a sudden there's 3,000 or there's only 10 or something like that, like they'll let you know there's an anomaly going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I really like ExtraHop for that. They're more established in making that transition and pivot into security, and their interface is amazing. They're also a sponsor, but one of the reasons they're a sponsor is because they do amazing things. It sounds like this is kind of playing in that same space, but certainly a space that's super important, right? As our networks get more ubiquitous and complex, having software that helps you with some of those decisions is super helpful. It doesn't replace the human, of course, but that's oftentimes what we do as humans, right? I mean, I go into my Security Onion, my Kibana console, right? And I'm looking at that going, yeah, no, that's expected behavior. That's not expected behavior. And I'm just doing that in my head because I'm monitoring a small network also, right? As you scale out, this is crucial to be able to do. And I can see that being, a crossover between sometimes it's just good network health and what's expected and what's not for the network to operate, but also anomalies for security kind of get thrown in the mix. I mean, that's always been the case. I mean, I worked very closely with the network team at all my jobs, in my past. So,
and it looks like they're compatible with all the major clouds, containers, private networks, and apparently maybe have an agent. They mentioned that their solution can go on hosts to monitor network. So it's that's another thing I think that's important, depending on who the buyer is of this product, right? Like generally, I don't like the idea of having a separate cloud security product for the same thing that I have an on-prem security product for. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, if the DevOps team are the buyers of one product and security teams the buyers of another, maybe it makes sense. But it seems like they cover all the bases there in terms of where you might have network to monitor. ForcePoint picked up BitGlass, which BitGlass was one of the original CASBs. Also, along with everybody else, pivoted into SASE. They actually called it something else that seems like a partial CASB. They call it SSE, Security Service Edge.
Yeah, that's the terminology everyone's going to, right? Is that something to do with edge rather than a CASB?
I mean, it looks like the same collection of acronyms, CSPM, DLP, SWG, ZTNA, that you see with SASE. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's something where once you put BitGlass and ForcePoint together, they're a full SASE, but with them separately, they're not.
Right. Probably what led to acquisition, right? Yeah.
So ForcePoint got acquired by a PE shop a while back, so I can't imagine that this is great news for BitGlass investors. BitGlass, how much did they raise? Like 150 million, something like that. Yeah. Maybe they're breaking even. I don't know. They because it's private, they didn't share the deal amount.
And ForcePoint is already kind of a conglomeration of various companies, right? Their secure web gateway was, what was it called? Web Scout? No, not Web Scout.
So they did acquire a CASB. So I'm trying to remember the name of the CASB, but Imperva acquired them first, and then they divested them and sold them off to ForcePoint. So ForcePoint used to be web. Help me out here. There's so many web ones. The one that used WebSense. Thank you.
Yes, they acquired WebSense. Yes, formerly WebSense. Raytheon.
They changed their name.
It was Raytheon WebSense. It's a whole Raytheon acquired 80%.
So Raytheon acquired WebSense, and they rebranded, and they combined it with some of the Raytheon cyber stuff that they already had, which included, I think, parts of Mantech International. And then they just rebranded as ForcePoint. And I just haven't heard much about them since then, except them getting picked up by a PE shop. So this is a PE shop putting together two, I would assume, slow growers and trying to turn it into a win. Maybe spinning it out for another acquisition exit, or I can't see it going IPO, but who knows? A new company, ChainGuard, aiming to address SBOM type supply chain threats, things like that, from the very beginning of development process, all the way through the development process. Very early stage. Not a whole lot of details on how they're going to do it, but definitely an experienced team, and I think really, really interesting. They're poking in some of those dark corners where we're really nervous about. Okay, we're using 47 npm packages. How many of those are going to cause us pain at some point or get compromised? They're kind of shining lights in all those dark corners. Or planning to. I don't know if they even have product at this point.
Yeah, it sounds just like an SCA play, but they say
that's a piece of it.
A piece, because they say applying zero trust principles to supply chain security to make the software lifecycle secure by default.
So they're also looking to make sure that malicious code isn't inserted by an insider, by an outsider. So there's they give a bunch of examples on the website of different threats that they're hoping to address at different stages of the development lifecycle. Yubico has been talking about doing biometric security keys for a while, and they finally released them. You can buy them now. So basically, it's the same same Yubico key that you're used to, except the gold disc that you would touch to send the authentication code is also now a fingerprint reader to make sure that not just anybody can, tap that and make it work.
That's a really nice feature.
Yeah, especially if you're, with something easy to lose like this.
Yes.
Easy to get stolen, certainly in like an evil maid attack or something like that.
Because inevitably you end up leaving some of those plugged in your computers And you just rely on your physical security for it.
Some of them are designed to be left plugged in, like the little Yubico Nanos that stick out like a couple millimeters. Yeah, they're designed to be just kind of installed forever.
Yeah. I mean, it is a trade-off on security, right? But on my desktop, certainly, you probably leave one plugged in. And again, you're relying on your physical security of wherever your computer is. For laptops, though, I wouldn't want mobile users to like leave those plugged into their laptops. I always keep mine separate from my laptop, right? In case your laptop is stolen, you don't want to leave your YubiKey in it. Although you can disable, revoke that YubiKey pretty easily and quickly.
Personally, I'm not a huge fan. Like sometimes I'll be out at a coffee shop or at a, cigar bar or something like that. These will be at home and I'll need to log into GitHub or something like that. And, I forget to bring them, but I've got my phone with me.
Yes.
Like why can't I just use my phone?
You can. Again, that depends on what how many layers of two-factor and options you've built into which applications, right?
Right.
And that's the hard part with multi-factor is the support across all of those.
Right.
If you're not in an enterprise that has some kind of single sign-on, system built in, or you've adopted a Ping identity or Azure SSO, or what's the big one? Well, I'm blanking on the name now. What's the big single sign-on?
Okta.
Okta. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so it's compatibility is definitely an issue. At first there were just a few browsers it was compatible with, and then if you're logging into a product through like a FAT client and it uses an embedded browser like on Mac or Windows, oftentimes those don't work with these, so you have to use an alternate method anyway. I'm like, if 25% of the time I'm using something other than these anyway, why? Why bother with another factor? I don't know. Somebody come at me with a good argument for security keys over just using MFA factors via your phone or something like that, or biometrics.
The issue I had with the phone was when you get a new phone, they wouldn't always transfer depending on which client you were using.
Yeah, so
they fixed that in more recent times as well, probably for just those reasons, right?
I'll admit my eggs are in one basket. I use 1Password. I used to use Authy, and Authy's easy because it syncs it to the cloud. So if you forget to move your tokens, no problem. It's synced them. All you have to do is reinstall Authy, as long as you remember your backup password. And these days I just let 1Password enter those the TOTP codes, and they're in there with all my passwords.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, obviously, with anything in security, it depends on what you're protecting.
Yeah, exactly. Next thing on the list here, we've got a open source tool released by Facebook for analyzing. It's like a static analyzer for Android apps and Java, which I think most Android apps still are written in Java these days. Mariana Trench is the name of it. And it's up on GitHub, or you can get binary releases via PyPy. Is that how you say that? PyPy?
Yeah, that's how I say it, which is probably wrong, but yeah, I think that's right.
They've previously released analyzers for Python also, a tool called Pysa, and another tool called Zonkoyan. Not sure what that's from, for hack code, which I didn't realize hack was a programming language. That was new to me. There's an interesting article here about how basically venture capital is kind of outrunning the industry's or the market's ability to exit some of these companies. So we're going to potentially see a whole lot more IPOs than we're used to seeing, because they're saying a lot of companies are cutting down on acquisitions because they're afraid of being investigated or broken up as monopolies.
Well, that's interesting. So, is that the VC firm is afraid they're going to be a monopoly and broken up?
No, the tech giants that are doing all these acquisitions. So the idea is,
I got you.
If tech giants like Facebook and Google and Microsoft slow down in acquisitions, VCs are, holding this bag, with all these companies they're hoping to get an exit from.
And their only exit for that is then to go IPO. because the big
either IPO or they can stay private, but then they can't get the return that they're looking for. So they need. I guess the other option would be private equity.
Right.
Could be another exit, but they generally don't give the kind of exits that VCs are looking for. Mm-hmm. They don't give that 20x, that 100x. They tend to go after the the slow growers but still good. And piece a bunch of those together. Mm-hmm. Maybe make an IPO out of that. So like we've seen happen with who are the ones? FireEye and
Mandiant.
No, they split up, but who did FireEye just get paired with? Why am I blanking on that? We were disappointed RSA wasn't one of them, but it was FireEye and McAfee, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, McFireEye. So interesting report from the Atlantic Security Council, I think. Yeah, Atlantic Council. Put out this report on maritime security, and the TLDR is basically they get a lot of work to do. They're way behind, and the reason that it's timely to talk about now is attackers are starting to look at maritime resources as potential targets.
I think Larry was talking about this on Paul's Security Weekly, how you can spoof the location of a ship and things like that. Hide the location of a ship. There's all
AIS. I think is the the protocol that you use, the what you use to actually transmit your location. So GPS is used, but it's not easy to spoof because if you spoof it, you have to spoof the entire area. Mm-hmm. So in like a busy shipping channel. Like you can't spoof GPS to run one ship aground. You're going to run them all aground.
Oh, I see.
But then they also have their AIS data, as kind of a backup for that. I don't think ships these days depend only on GPS. They've got some radio data.
That's curious. The history of that. And the reason I mention the history is because I'm reading the book Code Girls, and largely what the largely female workforce in World War II was doing in code breaking, which is the kind of the premise of the book, that many of the code breakers, 70+% were women, and they were trying to break the Japanese and German codes largely to gather where their ships were either are or going, right, or heading to. And so they're trying to decipher those codes and messages.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in the day and age of spy satellites,
technology has, of course, that landscape has changed dramatically. It'd be interesting to see how the history of like when all those changes were implemented and how it works today, and tie into how maritime security, why it's so poor today, and the importance of it based on the technology they're using.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard horror stories about the systems that work with that AIS data, that you use for for navigation, still being XP, CE, all kinds of horror shows like that. Obviously, they're not. I don't know if they're directly connected to the internet, but the threat to those things is not the same as an XP machine on a corporate network or anything like that. But still there's there's a full report that they put out, no registration or anything like that. You can just download it and thumb through it. But pretty interesting stuff. And our last story for the day is our squirrel story, which is all about space junk. So Steve Wozniak and Alex Fielding, I don't know who Alex Fielding is. Obviously, I know who Woz is. Have a startup called Privateer that aims to both map and get rid of space junk.
Wow, that's cool. How do you get rid of?
I'm glad you asked. So some things that have been tried include nets and harpoons. Not even kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, just
like old school.
Taking that ocean going kind of sea naval analogy of space very literally. throwing out nets and using harpoons to get junk. So first of all, some context on how much junk is out there. I think I actually had an image for this. I actually found.
Please tell me it's not urine in space.
No, it's not.
That's a thing. And so you say in the description, astronauts have described watching urine being released into space as one of the most beautiful sights in orbit, which is just.
Yeah, because it crystallizes immediately. Like the moment it goes out there, It turns into beautiful crystals, and crystals are pretty, right?
Wow.
Especially when light passes through them.
Pretty pee-pee.
So yeah, there's 36,500 objects greater than 10 centimeters in size. 1 million objects between 1 centimeter and 10 centimeter.
Wow.
So that includes people have lost gloves, spatulas, wrenches. In one case, an astronaut lost an entire tool bag worth $100,000. The whole bag went missing, and it is apparently fairly easy to spot from the ground here on Earth. And then 330 million objects between 1 millimeter and 1 centimeter in size.
Wow, it's a lot of junk.
Yeah. So it's so funny, like reading about space junk, because things will burn up in the atmosphere, they kind of use that as like a trash incinerator.
Yeah.
So like when they upgraded the air conditioning on the International Space Station, they basically didn't need this 1,400-pound tank of ammonia anymore. So they just threw it out the window of the space station, basically, and just let it burn up in the atmosphere.
Wow.
But that's generally that's the ongoing general plan of dealing with space junk, is just having it deorbit back into the atmosphere where it's going to burn up.
Gotcha. I like ground-based lasers. I mean, you could turn that into a video game and just let people play. Like, that would be awesome. Well, except you wouldn't want them to incinerate a working satellite or something important.
Yeah, 150 kilowatt laser, I think is what it was. So some pretty serious lasers. That's
awesome. That sounds like fun.
But yeah, talking about using magnets, robots with tentacles and stuff like that, talking about actually salvaging the junk orbiting the Earth and using it to build new things. So recycling. That's
crazy.
Is also an option. Also up there is Gene Roddenberry's ashes. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Somewhere up there.
Somewhere up there.
Does that have a tracker? Does that have a tracker on it? I wonder.
I would say it depends on how large it is. If it's larger than 10 centimeters, whatever it's in, then yes. But generally, the things that are smaller than 10 centimeters are not currently tracked, which is what this company is going to be aiming to do, is to track some of that smaller stuff and put together plans for handling it. Because it is starting to become an issue. Like within the last couple of years, satellites have collided with space junk. Space junk has taken out a few valuable things in orbit. Yeah. So it looks like you remember WALL-E when the ship breaks. Do we have that image? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's starting to look like that. We're getting there.
It's a huge problem. Glad Woz is on this problem.
Yeah, me too. All right. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining me today. And a big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. See you next week.